Most people think wealth is a destination. They imagine a mountain of gold or a bank account with 7 zeros as the ultimate prize. But they are wrong. Wealth isn't a trophy, it's a river. If that river stops moving, everything downstream dies. In the medieval world, they had a name for this systemic rot: dead money. Most of the time, we focus on how to get money, but we never talk about what happens when money stops moving. When capital stays idle in offshore chests or inactive accounts, it doesn't just sit there, it freezes the bloodstream of society. This is the velocity trap. It isn't that resources are missing, it's that the circulation is blocked. And when the blood stops flowing, the empire always falls. The elite understand a truth that Western history rarely teaches. Money is not bedrock, it is a belief system. When a civilization gets rich faster than it gets wise, people start hoarding. They speculate on prices instead of contributing to the market. This creates a stealth redistribution where the many are taxed by inflation while the few lock away the world's liquidity. If you are holding paper promises while this invisible glue of trust evaporates, you aren't a saver, you are the liquidity for the next reset. Welcome to Capital in Context, where we tell the stories behind the world's most important economic and financial moments. Each video explores a single event to explain exactly what happened, why it happened, and how it still shapes our world today. Today, we are deconstructing the medieval secret that explains every modern financial crisis: the velocity trap. Long before central banks existed, an 11th century scholar named Al-Ghazali issued a warning that still echoes across every stock market today. He compared money to a mirror. A mirror has no value on its own. Its worth comes entirely from what it reflects. Money is the same. Its power lies not in the metal or the paper, but in what it allows people to trade, build, and cooperate. But here's the catch. When you treat the mirror like a god, it loses its function. When wealth is locked away in chests or buried in courtyards, it becomes dead. It doesn't feed workers, fund trade, or support families. If the mirror is hidden, the reflection of prosperity disappears. Modern governments realized they couldn't just ask people to stop hoarding. So they did something much more radical. They turned debt into the most profitable product in history to force money to move. In 1694, the creation of the Bank of England formalized this. Instead of money being dead in a room, it became a rolling subscription of government debt. The state began to live on debt, rolling it over endlessly. This created a circular mirror where every nation holds someone else's IOU. If the world actually paid off its $315 trillion debt, the global dollar supply would shrink, triggering a catastrophic deflationary collapse. To prevent dead money, the system chose permanent debt. When the bloodstream slows down, rulers often get desperate. We saw this in ancient Rome. As tax revenues failed to keep pace with costs, emperors reduced the silver content of the denarius from 95% to less than 5%. This was stealth inflation, a trick to satisfy debts with currency that held no real value. It's the same pattern used in the American Civil War with Confederate graybacks, and in modern cases like Zimbabwe or Venezuela. Governments disguise inflation as growth to keep the illusion of velocity alive. But as the people in Rome learned, you cannot make a broken coin whole by decree. When trust in the money dies, the empire follows right behind it. The survival blueprint relies on 3 actions. First, liquidity for leverage. They maintain reserves to acquire assets when the passive savers are forced to liquidate during a crisis. Second, productive resilience. They own things that move, feed, or build. In every crisis, from the Black Death to the 2008 crash, money can lose its meaning, but the value of production never does. Third, avoiding debt discipline. They recognize that debt is a lever of political control. Real wealth means minimizing dependence on a system that thrives on keeping you indebted. Economic systems do not collapse because the numbers stop adding up. They collapse because the invisible glue of trust evaporates. When people stop believing in the promises behind the paper, the velocity stops. The velocity trap isn't just a financial event, it's a moral one. If you mistake borrowing for prosperity, you are following a map designed by your creditors. Understanding the architecture of money is your only financial protection. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't understand it, it'll crush you all the same. If this analysis of dead money and the velocity trap gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe to Capital in Context. History has the answers, and I'll show you where to look.